Is 3 minutes. Please be aware the 3 lights in front of me are a reminder of your time limit. Clarification of information presented and answers to questions specific to district business and educational matters will be posted on the school board's website under the section called For the Record. Please be reminded that profane, abusive, or slanderous speech is not permitted, and I request that you speak into the microphone and state your name for the record. Normally, we take the first 10 at the beginning of the meeting and the last 10 towards the end, but given that the majority of the speakers want to speak on an item that's on the consent agenda, I'm allowing all 21 speakers to speak at this time. So if the people will move over as it gets closer to their time to speak, that would be very helpful. So our first speaker tonight is John Emery, followed by Scott Wall de Souza.
I just wanted to be sure that I understood what...
Could you state your name for the record, please?
My name is John Emery. I'm a graduate of Satellite High School in 1968. My younger son graduated from Satellite High School and got his degree in history, just like I did. I graduated from Rollins College in '74, and my oldest son and my daughter both got their GEDs here from the school system. I want to be clear that I understand what just transpired tonight because I'm not familiar with the system. Someone motioned to move the reverter clause to information. I didn't hear if that passed or didn't pass, so the issue has been already decided. The school board has not been decided?
No, it means it's still on the consent agenda and will be voted on tonight.
Oh, okay. So it still is being discussed and hasn't been decided. Oh, okay. I'm much relieved that I'm not speaking for no purpose. I want to make it very clear why the Strawbridge Art League and artists are upset and concerned about this issue. I mean, aside from my degree in history and the fact that that's a historical building that's almost 100 years old, the Strawbridge Art League paid the Henniger Center for 13 and a half years, $1,000 a month, for the privilege of conducting visual arts programming in that building. They didn't have to hire any artists or do anything. We paid them for the privilege of conducting visual arts programming. In fact, I was president of the Strawbridge Art League in 2009. When they came to us, they had heard we had just gotten the John Van Dyke bequest, and would we consider paying our rent 6 months in advance? Because they would, and our treasurer, Max Spector, at the time negotiated to reduce the rent to $800 a month. So 3 times we cut them checks for $4,800. We paid our rent in advance 6 months. And then 2 years ago, we were told by the Brevard Regional Arts Group that they didn't want art on their walls. The Brevard Regional Arts Group did not want art on their walls. So to say that the visual artists of Brevard County were a little upset is to say the least. The other point that I was concerned about, this building is part not only part of the history, it's part of the topography of our lives. I don't think anyone's alive here who remembers when that building wasn't there. It's always been there, ever since I can remember as a child. And I've been here since 1954. One of the legal questions we would have is the reverter clause states that if it's not being used for public use, it goes back to the school system. Is using that building as a storage unit considered public use? And why wasn't this building reverted to the school system 10 years ago?
Okay, Scott Wall de Souza, followed by Larry Hughes.
Hi, my name is Scott Wall de Souza. As you know, you've seen me once, twice, 3, 4 times before. I'll make this short, as I know there are many pressing issues on the agenda tonight, not to diminish the importance of my concerns. Here I am wearing the same red shirt to hopefully remind you and to understand the urgency of amending your non-discrimination notice. I have been able to speak with Andy before, but yet, even though I emailed Ms. Neesey, I yet have gotten a response to that. The simple addition to sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression to our non-discrimination notice should be easy, since something as arbitrary as marital status is protected, even though we hope that they will at least wait until graduation to do such a thing. Yet small yet determined group of people are here with me today only reflect a small percentage of the community asking me to continue on this path to encourage you as our board to make a correct decision in being on the right side of history, as most of the state has already accepted the new verbiage. We should not be the last. This addition to the non-discrimination notice saves lives and builds relationships between all students. I expect you to follow your mission statement to serve every student with excellence as a standard, not just to pretend to serve. And I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Larry Hughes, followed by Douglas Levo.
Good evening. Larry Hughes, Satellite Beach, speaking to you from the cheap seats tonight. The view is different from here. I'm here to talk about the request to waive the reversion clause for the Old Mill High School. Ms. Henderson, thank you very much for trying to pull this from the consent agenda. I frankly don't know what school board should do. I haven't done my homework. But what I want to know is, has the school board, has the district done your homework? I haven't adequately studied the problem. I haven't done due diligence on Bragg's request that the board waive the reversion clause. Have you? I haven't had a meaningful conversation with the community as to their concerns, their ideas, and their plans to develop a consensus for transparent decision-making. Have you? I haven't had my attorney look at the contract between the developer and Bragg, not just a letter purporting to represent what's in the contract, but the actual contract itself. Have you? I haven't had the property appraised independently to see what the real market value is. Have you? Why are we skipping the obvious steps of professional management and rushing to judgment? This is a new thing. This proposal surfaced 6 weeks ago, and you're sitting here tonight with it on the consent agenda without any discussion, without any public input. What's the rush to judgment, I ask you? You've had one developer make one proposal, and tonight you're ready to make a decision? I couldn't be. I wouldn't be. Bragg is like to convince you that this is a simple decision. It's not. It's a complex decision. That's why there's a formal request that you waive the reversion clause. They want you to believe that it's going to put some money in the pockets of the kids, of the district for the kids, for arts programs, and it will, a small amount. But the truth is that if you accept this proposal and you waive those rights, you're potentially taking a very valuable piece of property away from the district, and you're robbing the kids of that value. The Port Malabar music director tonight, before the board was in session, as she was introducing their music piece, she said, "We all have a voice to be heard." Those are really appropriate words. The community has a voice to be heard on this. Regardless of the decision that you ultimately make, you want it to be transparent. You want to give them an opportunity to vet their feelings and feel that they were heard. If you go forward with this on the consent agenda tonight, that's not going to happen. The community needs to be heard, either now or later, because they vote. Thank you.
Okay, Douglas Levo, followed by Spence Garin.
Good evening. My name's Doug Levo. I'm president of the Titusville Playhouse, and I'm here tonight to speak to the Melbourne High reverter issue. I'd like to recommend that the latest proposal from Bragg and the City of Melbourne not be accepted by the school board tonight as adequate compensation for removing that revert clause, and I'll give you a couple of reasons why. The combined offer of $100,000 from Bragg and $50,000 from Melbourne is an absurdly low number for such a highly valued property, and it would not be in the best interest of students, cultural arts, or the taxpayers to release that property for that amount. The proposal letter that is available lacks a detailed description of the property that's actually being sold for non-public development, but seems to ask that the revert clause be removed for the entire Bragg and City complex, that whole area, which according to Brevard County property appraiser records has a value, market value, of close to $3 million. A second reason is that with the proposal is that Bragg would be the sole beneficiary of some $800,000, using $300,000 of that to pay debt and another $500,000 for their student program. However, the details of that endowment program really describe more of a general program funding and not really providing direct benefit to students. I think that type of funding would probably benefit more their staff and other operational costs rather than the students. If Bragg was a growing, thriving cultural institution, which I think we'd all hope and want it to be, I would think they'd be making plans to expand their programs and make use of that property. I can tell you Titusville recently bought the property next to us, and we're looking to buy other property. By the way, we pay full market value for those properties when we've been buying them. To expand our program. I know Cocoa Village over the last few years has needed extra property too. So I would encourage Bragg to actually consider what was the original intent of that property, to be used for the cultural arts. I think their inability to grow the program there in the 25 years is a concern. And for the market that they have and the cultural benefit they provide the community, I'm not sure they've demonstrated it's justified to hand them that $800,000 in cash, plus give them $2 million of property, public property free and clear by removing their whole revert clause. Another thing to consider is that if the revert clause is removed for the entire property, a future Bragg board could sell the property for millions and squander its value with no benefit to the public at all. Incompetent, greedy, rogue boards are always a concern of nonprofit organizations. So I urge the board to reject the current offer. If Bragg wishes to release the property, it's an albatross as they've described it, and a high cost to them. I would offer that they return the property to the school board, and the school board consider a better public use of it. If the school board were to accept the current offer that's on the table.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Spence Garin, followed by Tom Beatty. Spence? Okay. And then after Spence will be Tom Beatty, so if you could move closer over.
My name is Spence Garin. I live in Melbourne. Shame on you for not allowing a public hearing for the people to discuss this issue. You are moving forward fast and not allowing the public time to comment, not to even consider alternative uses of Old Melbourne High School, which in 1990 was determined to be eligible for designation as a historically significant building. It has historic value. What is your hurry? No proper feasibility study has ever been done to evaluate long-term benefits to the region of public reuse of this building, perhaps for an arts and cultural center, which we know also stimulates economic development in towns and cities across the country. Shame on you for not allowing that to be done. For 7 years, the South Brevard Historical Society operated a history museum in Old Melbourne High before being moved out in 1984. The director of the Henniger Center said nobody's been in there for about 50 years. That's false, blatant false. Melbourne Civic Theater was moved out. Strawbridge Art League was moved out after 13 or 14 years. Pushed out is what they say. And you're allowing no public hearing to discuss the future of that building. That is shameful. And you've put it into a consent agenda, as I understand it, so you don't even have to discuss it. That means some of you may not want to be recorded saying the way you feel about this or something. Why would you hide this away in a consent agenda so you don't have to discuss it? Some of you speak for the developer instead of for the public school interest. Maybe you don't want that recorded. Why no public hearing? What's the big hurry? This is really shameful. This is a public asset, not an eyesore, as the city manager of Melbourne said. It's a public asset which could be a historically important draw. Just this past week, I was downtown, met people from France who had come there because it was historic downtown Melbourne. You're gonna allow history to be removed from historic downtown Melbourne, and it's not because I went to Melbourne High School. It's because the way you're doing this is an outrage. It's a public disgrace.
Thank you, sir. Your time is up.
You're certainly welcome.
Okay, Tom Beatty, followed by Phil Stasek, followed by Clayton Richardson.
Good evening. My name's Tom Beatty. I live in Melbourne, Florida. Been a resident for a long time. I want to speak to this high school, sale. One of the things that I look at, the old Melbourne High School and the Henniger Center are both part of the Florida Main Street program, which all of downtown Melbourne is a part of. This is a district, okay, and this school and the Henniger Center is in that district. And it's they like for the Main Street programs to maintain the historical significance of the area, okay, and it is the Melbourne Downtown Historical District. So I want you to think about it. Imagine some years ago that a previous school board had decided to sell this property, all of it, to a developer and put up apartments. We wouldn't have the Henniger Center. Look at the Henniger Center. It's a prime example of what can be done with an old building. It is a useful community asset, and it has a historical perspective. So does the old Melbourne High School. It could be a valuable community asset supporting the arts and cultural community of the area. Okay, one of the things is Brevard Regional Arts Group, BRAG, they were supposed to renovate both buildings when they were given them. They've done a wonderful job with the Henniger Center, but they did nothing with the old Melbourne High School building. It has sat there for a long time. I was involved in fundraisers to raise money to renovate it in the early 2000s. That money was never used to refurbish the building. I don't even know what happened to it. But besides that, they haven't done anything to do it. Now they want to sell it and reap the benefits. This shouldn't happen. This building could be, the reverter clause could be enforced. This building, leave them the Henniger Center, this building could be taken back, because if it's going to be sold, it has to be subdivided. It could be subdivided and given back to the school board. The school board could then give it to another group with requirements that things happen with it. Is my time up?
Close, but not
yet.
yet.
Okay. And I want to just say, you as a board member have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers to protect their interest. Have you performed due diligence in ascertaining that this action allows a sale the action to allow the sale of the building meets the requirement that this is in the best interest of the public?
Sir, your time's up now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I have a point of order?
I'm sorry, sir, your time's up.
Okay. I can't ask a question about the proceedings
sorry.
of the meeting.
I'm sorry, sir, your time
Okay.
is up.
Good
Okay.
evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Phil Stasek. I am a resident of North Merritt Island, and I want to say thank you. Thank you for your service to the community. Thank you for the service on behalf of the children of Brevard County. It's very important. Your primary duty is to protect our children. You're protecting the future of our county. Now, when we look at the facilities, buildings, assets that you govern, it's very important for you to handle those with respect and to look forward and use them with the best public interest. Melbourne High School, for many people, of course, holds a lot of memories. I did not go there, but I do respect that building. Those of you that have seen it, I know you all have. It's a beautiful building. It has a lot of potential. And it's important to recognize that people around the United States, people around the world, are looking to preserve historic buildings. Some of them are being preserved in their original form. Some of them are being repurposed. Now, I know that you recognize that that building has historic value. People do respect buildings. People will come from miles around to enjoy historic buildings. I believe that there's a lot of potential in that old building. She has a lot of life left in her. If you sell her, if you dispose of that asset in a way that does not preserve the history of Melbourne, it's a loss, not just for our generation, but it's a loss for a future generation. It's a loss for our children, and it's a loss for the children of tomorrow. Please, stop. That's all that we ask. Stop what you're doing. Give everyone a chance to have a voice, to look more closely at this issue. Save Old Mel High for future generations. Save Old Mel High because its value will be greater for our community as a historic building, as a piece of history for future children to enjoy, for future people to share the arts, to share for whatever purpose that it finally serves. But we ask you, please stop. There's no rush. There's no necessity to take action right now to get rid of this beautiful old building. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you for listening to all of us. You know that we care, and I know that you care as well. Your duty is to the public interest, and we ask that you serve the public interest by pausing and thinking twice about destroying Old Mel High. Thank you.
Okay, Clayton Richardson, followed by Rebecca Rayborn, followed by Sarah Prosser.
Hello, thanks for this opportunity to address you. My name is Clayton Richardson. I'm from Satellite Beach, and I'd like to talk to you about the school's non-discrimination policy. My sense has been that the board feels no need to add sexual orientation or gender identity to their non-discrimination policy because you're in compliance with Florida and county law. Well, let's think about that a bit. In compliance. Well, that's good. It's not excellent. It's not excellent like we see on your mission statement. In fact, couldn't we replace in compliance with meeting minimum requirements? Surely you don't strive for your staff and students to merely meet minimum requirements. Not in student safety, surely, or technology, or teacher effectiveness, or even conducting a superintendent search. Well, your non-discrimination policy does not meet a standard of excellence. The absence of 4 words, sexual orientation and gender expression, is quite glaring. The vast majority of Fortune 500 companies include it. All federal contractors, and there are many in this county, follow those guidelines. It's glaring, the lack of LGBT protection. It's glaring to your students and staff. It's glaring to job seekers. So actually, you're narrowing your pool of qualified candidates. And frankly, while you're giving our students an excellent education, many of them will take it elsewhere to a place with LGBT protections. So I'm asking you to lead, to show fairness, equal treatment, and inclusion, to model good behavior for our children, to excel, to go beyond state requirements. And if you believe this may be difficult to implement or administer, please talk to your colleagues in Volusia County and Orange County and 9 other counties in Florida. You see, they're already including sexual orientation and gender expression in their non-discrimination policies. Thank you very much.
Rebecca Rayborn, followed by Sarah Prosser, followed by Patty Gontanet.
I really feel like I'm part of the family.
Welcome.
I have never been the drill and kill type teacher into which this testing lunacy is trying to shape me. I prefer to discuss with rather than lecture to my students, which is why the study of literature is so important to the language arts teacher. Therefore, it is with great trepidation that I use our new language arts curriculum, which has little to do with the art of language. Most of the new textbook consists of uninspiring, dry as dirt nonfiction because politicians, computer billionaires, and testing companies believe they know more about teaching than highly trained educators. They also, thank you. They also have determined that nonfiction is what teaches critical thinking. Well, they're all wrong. Ask the students and they will tell you. Without a doubt, students do need to read for informational purposes, but is drastically changing the language arts curriculum so that 50% of it is made up of nonfiction material a wise decision? The reasoning as presented by one of your district trainers is not sound. Simply because a history teacher does not teach writing does not mean the language arts curriculum must become a ghost of itself. Any reader can cite facts, but the true development of a child's critical thinking skills occurs when he studies literature, poetry, and drama, when students are allowed to create rather than regurgitate. About 3 weeks ago, I had an interesting conversation with one of my 9th grade students. I told her I'd deleted her name and used her argumentative essay as an anchor paper while conducting a writer's workshop with my 11th grade students. She had the most shocked expression on her face, so I thought she was upset. Instead, she was shocked with honor. Well, we wound up talking about all sorts of school-related topics. She explained to me that the only reason she looked forward to being at school is because of my class and her history teacher's class. When I asked her why, she told me, "You and Mr. Kendall truly care about us." She continued by saying, "Ms. Rayborn, you may never see or know it, but you've made a tremendous impact on the lives of so many of us, and I want you to know that. Thank you for caring about us." As our conversation ended, I gotta stop. As our conversation ended, she said to me, "What do you think, Miss Rayborn, about us getting together and reading a book and talking about it?" And I said, "Really? I've never had a student ask me that. Outside of class? You really want to read with me?" "Yes, ma'am, I do." And I said, "Well, why don't we form a book club?" So yesterday we came up with our name. It's called the Novel Nerds Book Club. Thank you very much. And it is a select group of students who really want to get together and talk about literature. So that same day during lunch, she and another student stalked me. "Miss Rayborn, please, let's make a list." So we made a list of books, and we made a list of potential invitees. Because I said, we want to have fun, but we got to take this seriously. We have to, if you want to learn. And so,
Ms. Rayborn, I'm sorry.
I know.
I love hearing you
The
speak.
end is so good.
You are.
It's because of them. It's my mission to be here every meeting. I fight for them.
As always, I love hearing you speak. So, Sarah Prosser, followed by Patty Gontanet.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sarah Prosser, and I'm a mother of 3 children in the Brevard County school system. I have a child in 5th grade, 1 in 6th grade, and 1 in 8th grade. The reason for me speaking tonight is to share my feelings regarding the standardized assessments that are required and have been required of our children for some time now. When my oldest daughter started taking the state-regulated assessments years ago, I didn't really think much of it, honestly. She was a straight-A student. She did very well on tests, was a great test taker, and it just seemed to be part of her school year. I was naively content, I like to say, so to speak. However, when my second child started taking the standardized assessments, at the time it was the FCAT, now we've switched over to something different, it was a much different picture. I saw how it affected her both emotionally and physically. And as a parent, there's nothing worse than seeing your child in pain and not being able to help. It didn't matter how many times I told her, as long as she did her personal best on these tests, that we would be fine with her scores, whatever they were. That 1 grade on 1 test would not define her, her life, or her career, that she was more than a number. But now we're in a situation where that 1 score may change her academic career and what school she ends up attending for junior and senior high. How is it that 1 test could do such a thing? What has always been my measure, or her father and I's measure, of their academic success, and I believe should be the measure to which she is held, is the grades that they receive day in and day out in their coursework and throughout the year on their teacher-driven tests, reviews of their coursework. After all, how can you get the whole picture when you simply look at 1 test? My child's not alone. I know by talking with other moms that we are just one of many who share in this experience. I feel the system is broken. For some children, it puts an inordinate amount of stress on them. Sorry, I don't like doing this. You can only imagine how my heart broke for my middle daughter time and time again when she would, assessment time would come, and we're talking about an honor roll student who would make herself physically sick over taking 1 test. It's disgusting. 1 test that stays on their academic record and could change their academic opportunities. Sorry. I could just see on her face, she would always wonder if she was smart enough or if she was good enough. So we've tried to teach them, our children, that, while they'll make mistakes in their lives, it's the ability to get up and learn from those mistakes. And they can't do that with these assessments when the teachers never get them back and the students never get to see what they got wrong so they can correct it and learn from it. So I urge you to encourage our legislature to change in that manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Was that Patty? That was Sarah. Okay. Patty Gottinette, followed by Cameron Donaldson, followed by Jeremy Whirls.
Patty Gottinette, my friend and neighbor, had to leave. I know that she was here to speak to you on Melbourne High School and probably to share with you how she and her husband restored a historic home on our street that the entire neighborhood was convinced would have to be razed because of the terrible condition that it was in, and how it is now the gem of our street. We are all very proud of that. I am Cameron Donaldson, and I am here to tell you, as a lifelong resident of Brevard, one who has always been very pro Brevard Public Schools and has worked in the past to convince family and friends to vote for yet another school tax, to elect this and that school board member. I am extremely dismayed and disappointed at what really appears to be collusion, I would say, on your part. I cannot believe the force that you are moving with no option for the public to seek other opportunities, repurposing, return on investment of a historic, valuable asset that the public built with $200,000 in 1926. Imagine $200,000 in 1926, what that would be worth today. The Florida Today, I feel, has contributed to this by putting pictures of peeling paint and broken windows. Well, if peeling paint and broken windows were such a problem, my house would have been condemned 30 years ago, and it still has those. People do value history, and they do value great architecture. And there's a reason historic downtown Melbourne has the historic part in its name. And I was recently stopped on Melbourne Avenue by people from up north, snowbirds. Can you tell us how to get to the historic little town? You know, they care. They want that, and we want that. And frankly, I wouldn't care if this historic building became an apartment building if it were kept the way it is, but I think it's far more important that you follow the direction that all these very excellent speakers have given you. It is a public asset, and your duty is to guard the public trust and to seek what is best interest of the public, not what is most expedient for you, and not what is best for a narrow interest, but for the broadest public interest. And there are so many issues of public interest here, aside from the fact how the hell a building was ever given away is an outrage, and the whole way this process is conducted. I agree with the prior comments about burying these things, and in a consent agenda, it is shameful. And you should remove this from the consent agenda. The reverter clause is valuable to us, those of us who you work for. Thank you.
Okay. Jeremy Whirls, followed by Solomon Whirls, followed by Dina Stanley. I sense you guys are related.
With your permission, can I have my son Solomon speak first?
Sure.
Okay.
Make sure the microphone's by his mouth.
My name is Solomon Whirls, and I am 10 years old. I am in the 5th grade, and I don't really like talking in front of people, but after I saw Sammy speak on my mom's computer, I said I wanted to talk too. Last week I had testing at my school. My mom and dad decided that I should not do the whole test. And I'm not sure why I had to go to the test and if they did not want me to. I know my mom and dad are there to protect me, and sometimes I do not need to know everything about grown-up issues. I want to say thank you because my mom told me that you all came up with the plan to make me not sit in the testing room for a long time. After I got my test, it was time to work. I was very scared when a woman asked why I wasn't taking the test. I almost said no. My parents said no. I almost cried. I was afraid I was doing something wrong and I would get in trouble. Then my teacher sent me out of the room and I was taken to the office. I sat there for a long time, and then I went to the library for a long time to read books. My mom and dad said they were very proud of me. I'm proud that I did what my mom and dad wanted. I know they are here to protect me. I love school and my teachers. My favorite subject is science. I like to play in orchestra and chorus too. Thank you for letting me speak today.
I think you did a nice job, Dad.
Thank you for letting us speak tonight. I'd like to talk about the standardized testing. We're the parents of 6 children. He's in the middle somewhere. We got kindergarten all the way up to 11th grade. And all of our kids are facing some kind of issue this year. We moved to a small house beachside so we could be close to Satellite High and Delora Middle School and Holland Elementary. We care about our kids' education. We want them to do well in life, and that begins at school. First of all, thank you for the directive that you sent out that allowed kids to be taken out of the classroom and not be in that stressful situation. Unfortunately, a few days ago, we then received a letter about our third grader possibly being held back for opting out of the test. I'd like to say more about that, but we received an email from our teacher's principal today saying that that's not necessarily the case, that things were being looked at, and that it might not be as serious a situation, which is excellent. So we're waiting for more word on that, but it sounds like that is under control. Yes. The principal did say that minimal participation does not count as testing, and we're trying to figure out what that means for us and for our kids. But it is worrying that there's so much stress and so much pressure being put on these kids for one test, like the other mom said. It's a huge thing for these kids. My third grader is an excellent student. She gets A's. She's upset when she gets a B. You know, she was in tears last night because she got a D on an assignment. She didn't know what to do with herself, and to put that kind of pressure on a kid is just, I can't stand to see my kids get upset like that. It just tears me apart. Our concerns over the FSA are primarily it's not a proven test yet. It hasn't had the kind of exposure to the kids and to the parents and to the teachers that it really needs to have the kind of impact that it does. It's frightening that this kind of stuff is being used to grade and judge our kids and move them along in their academic careers. I'm beside myself with the whole thing. I'm very upset. And as far as this letter goes, the Department of Education really needs to get to the bottom of this, what the statutes actually are, and get the information out to the parents in a timely and accurate manner. And the way that this letter was handled and sent out to parents before all the facts were known is really damaging to the reputation of the school board and to the Department of Education. And I really hope that you guys don't do this next time. Thank you.
Okay, Dina Stanley, followed by Darcy Addo, followed by Richard Smith.
Thank you so much for letting me speak today. My name is Dina Stanley. I am humbled to be here before you today, and just thank you so much for the time that you've given me. As a second grader, I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. It's in my blood. My grandmother taught the majority of her 35 years here in Brevard County at Harbor City Elementary School. My mother is still teaching here in Brevard County. I attended Roy Allen Elementary, Central Junior High, and I graduated from O'Galley High School. I earned my bachelor's degree in music and elementary education. I got my national board certification and my master's degree in reading. I've had the honor to serve as a 5th and 6th grade teacher at Indialantic Elementary School for the last 15 years. Now I have the pleasure of being a literacy coach at Hoover Middle School, Kennedy Middle School, and the South Alternative Learning Center. I love my job. Teaching is my passion. I want to inspire greatness. I want to empower students and teachers for a lifetime of success. Education gives us that voice. However, I am saddened to tell you that today our voice is gone. Where is the teacher's voice? When a single test score can determine retention or intensive reading in place of a chosen elective, where is the teacher's voice? When testing rules outweigh common sense, when standards blatantly oppose natural development milestones, where is the parent's voice? When authentic teaching is reduced by relentless test preparation, where is the parent's voice? When a student is forced to sit and stare after she has finished a standardized test, she can't even go back to class or read a book. Where is the student's voice? When our computer labs are taken over by testing for weeks and weeks, instead of using technology to inspire and creativity and advance us into the next generation, where is that student's voice? I ask today, can you please be our voice? Can you be the voice of the students, the parents, and the teachers? I plead with you to empower us to make local decisions, your decisions, that will involve common sense, human interaction, rather than arbitrary test scores spun out of a computer system. I implore you, keep us accountable for those things that we can control, for utilizing professional development, for using best practices on authentic remediation and assessment in our classrooms. I ask again, will you be our voice today? I leave you with this, a quote by Woodrow Wilson: with the voices of the people, the ear of the reader must reign with the voices of the people. Thank you so much for your time.
Slow down, Darcy. No accidents. I said slow down, no accidents. Okay, Darcy Addo, Richard Smith, Lisa Yancey.
March is National Ethics Awareness Month, so I think it's fitting that I frame my comments on the topic of ethics. I'm an educator. When I started teaching, I didn't have any plans for activism. Activism sort of found me somewhere along the way. All educators in the state of Florida sign a code of ethics. When we do, we agree to value the worth and dignity of every person, and that our primary concern would always be for the student, and that in our role we will exercise our best professional judgment and integrity. I take my code of ethics very seriously, which I think is what led me to activism. Right now, our students are mangled in a system that does not value their worth and dignity, so I must. It's my ethical imperative. This year, with the preparation for and the administration of the FSA, I have witnessed an egregious lack of professional judgment and integrity that demands that I speak on behalf of children. I have to say, I'm very grateful for the school board directive that many people have spoken about tonight that requires the ethical treatment of students whose parents choose minimal participation in the FSA. Many people the past week and a half have shared positive stories of supportive school-based staff. However, I'm remiss to say that the poor deployment of that directive and the uncooperative administration at some schools across the county have resulted in coercion, forced detainment of students in the classroom, and students being bullied into participating in tests against their wishes and the wishes of their parents. That is unacceptable because we all share the same ethical imperative, all educators. It's the job of the principal to ensure compliance with board rules. That's part of their job description at Brevard Public Schools. I have to say, this is an exciting time to be a teacher of conscience because we're watching a community wake up from a state of apathy that many people have been in for a long time. Parents care about what's happening. We have 21 people here to speak at the school board tonight. People are engaged. This is probably the best thing that could happen for public education. And I won't apologize if this attention causes a little bit of inconvenience for our school, our higher administration. I won't make that apology if it makes people take a long time to answer emails or it inconveniences people, because we are public education. So I will also just end by saying we live in the sunshine. It is unacceptable to make statements that have not been properly vetted and fact-checked, especially from people who are in positions of authority. Our senior leaders have to do their homework because they have to know that we, as an engaged community, are doing our homework. So with that said, I'll make two recommendations, if I may. I ask the board to please revise the directive to clear out anything that might be perceived as an ambiguity, and I have made some recommendations and passed them along based on things that I've heard from folks in Opt-out Brevard.
Darcy, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Boo, okay.
Feel free to send us a follow-up email.
I already have, thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I have to be fair with everyone. So Richard Smith, Lisa Yancey, and Mackenzie Yancey.
Hello, Board, Superintendent. Richard Smith, President of Brevard Federation of Teachers. Leon County School Superintendent Jackie Pott said Tuesday that he will continue the suspension of all online Florida Standards assessment testing. It is possible to do that.
Richard, could you pull up the microphone a little bit?
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, a little closer. Pons based the decision on reports that glitches with the system that had been reported Monday had continued in some districts on Tuesday. We want the best possible testing environment for our students, and that will not occur if there is any doubt that students will be able to sign on and complete their test, Pons said. Wakulla County School Superintendent Bobby Pierce said 8th grade writing test scheduled for Tuesday now will be held Wednesday. Online testing in a number of Florida districts today seemed to settle into a bizarre holding pattern as several school districts said they were suspending giving the exams until the state assured them that a series of disruptions were coming to an end. But those guarantees weren't coming, at least not right away. Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County districts, among others, said they were suspending online testing through Wednesday because they were not confident that the problems that bedeviled the test on Monday and Tuesday in some districts would not reemerge. Among the headaches caused by the testing disruptions were the jumbling of class schedules and lesson planning because teachers weren't sure when the exams would be given. Now, I want to ask you, did this happen in Brevard at all? I would ask that you find out and report it if it did occur. The parents have a right to know. State Senators Dwight Bullard and Jeff Clemens said the state had been warned by school superintendents, administrators, and teachers that Florida was not ready for the web-based exams. Their pleas were ignored by the Department of Education, which now claims that only a few thousand students were unable to test on March 2nd, the senators wrote. This is such a terrible twisting of the truth as to be almost unbelievable. While only a few thousand students who were able to take the test may have been unable to complete it, hundreds of thousands of students in districts such as Miami-Dade, Palm Beach, Leon, and over 30 others were completely unable to access the system properly, resulting in total suspension of the testing in many, if not most, counties. Further, thousands of hours of instructional time have been wasted. Here's the thing. It isn't just that hundreds of thousands of students were negatively affected. The students, parents, and teachers are asking you to hold us harmless this year. You can do this. Your employees are counting on you to protect their pay and their very careers from what is now obviously a sham of a testing system. I'm asking you to hold all of us harmless this year from a testing system that has already caused so much harm. Thank you.
Okay, Lisa Yancey, followed by what I believe is a family member, Mackenzie Yancey.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to have a voice. My name is Lisa Yancey, and I'm a teacher, I'm a parent, I'm a voter, and I'm a very concerned community member. I have a unique opportunity to see education from many perspectives. Tonight, in honor of my students that I teach, I am talking from a perspective of an exceptional education teacher. Our country is faced with an unprecedented opportunity to stop the testing frenzy. I know each of you care about the children who sit in our classrooms every single day, and I'm asking for your help. I want you to have a voice. The testing debacle is out of control, and we need our leaders to stand up for our children, teachers, parents, and our communities. The FSA and the current math and ELA district assessments are not valid assessment tools. This is especially true for our exceptional education students. Our students are often 1 to 3 years below grade level, and we continue to test them with tests they are doomed to fail. They are hard for our average students. These test sample questions are tricky for adults. These tests set students up to fail. Imagine taking a test that you can hardly read, questions you can't decipher. My students don't have to imagine that. They face that every time they sit down to a district or a state assessment. I am not anti-testing. I find data that drives my instruction and helps my students reach their goals very valuable. But this test should be standardized. There should be a means to an end. Our current district and state assessments do neither of these things for my students. These assessments hurt our students who are most vulnerable. Assessments should be used to measure growth, drive instruction, not for punitive measures. Teachers taking district assessments as double grades, that is punitive, and it's happening. I ask you to allow me to be a teacher. It's a craft that I continue to grow every day for my students. Allow me and a team of educators and administrators to make decisions about retention, remediation, promotion, and intervention. Allow me to be the professional that I am. Right now, please consider the testing, the amount of testing, the way we are testing, and why are we testing. Testing should be research-based, standardized, drive instruction, and above all, help our students grow to be lifelong learners. That should be the goal. I will leave you with a quote a friend recently sent me. Wrong is wrong, even if everyone is doing it. Right is right, even if no one is doing it. Please help our children and be the person doing the right thing. Thank you very much.
Okay, you must be Mackenzie.
Good evening. My name is Mackenzie Yancey, and I am a freshman student at Viera High School, and I recently opted out of the FSA rights test. This past year, my teachers have touched on the subject of this assessment, but I never thought of it as anything more than another test I'll have to sit through. Granted, I've never struggled with tests of this nature. In fact, I was blessed to have scored a 6 on my FCAT rights assessment in 8th grade. Then, my mom, who is a teacher, presented me with the option to participate but not take the test due to the invalid characteristics of the assessment. She shared her passionate views of the test, and I completely agree that the whole concept of teaching students just to pass an invalid, untested test was ridiculous. I had had the opportunity to work with special needs preschoolers students for the past 2 years, and it breaks my heart knowing that many of them will never succeed in testing methods such as FSA. Although I was hesitant to follow through with opting out. Being the rule follower I am, the whole idea of civic disobedience was terrifying. Not to mention the fact that I would be doing something very few students would have done, risking standing out among a sea of teenagers, which is quite frankly not my goal in high school. My parents told me the decision was completely up to me and applied no pressure. I had told myself I was just going to participate and take the easy way out. I sat down at the testing site confident in my decision. As my prompter read the rules aloud, I began to think of the other kids who this was not as easy for, the kids who probably will not pass. As these thoughts raced through my mind, I thought of my preschoolers and at that point decided I would not participate in this. It really hit me that this test is not a valid way to test me, my teachers, or my peers. I have had an excellent set of teachers throughout my years in Brevard public school system. Teachers who give up more and more every year the type of teaching teachers dream of and are forced to teach a test because their rating is tied to our scores. It's not fair. I am more than a score, and my teachers are more than a test. I want to be a teacher someday, but I wish to teach children to love to learn, not to just take a test. And just like life is a journey, so should our education. Thank you.
Okay, our last two speakers, Richard Charbonneau, followed by Tamya Bako.
Good evening. Richard Charbonneau, Satellite Beach. I'm not going to address the high school or anything else. I guess I'm all by myself here. The first thing that I have here is just a recommendation, and you can follow it or not follow it. It seems like Dr. Bingley's leaving kind of on the short notice end, but that's up to him. The only thing I would recommend for the board is that we get an interim superintendent in here pretty quickly. I don't think we have time to vet a really good superintendent in the amount of time that we have. But when we do vet the new superintendent, I urge you to have a superintendent that has educational background, but has a really strong background on financial issues and a track record on financial issues. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, the schools are doing well on the educational issues. It's the financial issues where we struggle. So in our next superintendent, maybe we get a superintendent that has a good educational background, but an extremely strong background in finance with a track record that's provable. iPhone turns off here. The second issue was just basically I have two questions there for Dr. Bingley, and Attorney Vestline can jump in. Recently we had a situation where at Satellite Beach the press was blocked from coming there. I think that's illegal. What do you think? What do you think?
We don't answer during
Oh,
this
you don't
time,
answer
Richard.
questions? Oh.
No, this
Okay,
is
so we-
strictly your time to talk to us.
Okay, so we ask questions, but we don't get answers. Okay. I don't understand that. But,
Okay, Richard, that wasn't what we said, but go ahead.
the other issue, again, so this will be a question that doesn't get answered, is although you're a short timer, and I'll send you an email regarding this, and maybe you'll answer me in an email, has anything been done with the persons that did the blocking? Because I think that's a fireable offense. So I'll ask both the attorney and the superintendent that, what's your intention of doing with the people that blocked that? Because to me it was against the law, and it's a fireable offense. Surely offense that that should be addressed. Yeah, I had one more thing here. Oh, the one more question here. From all the financial stuff there, I couldn't get it. I think I'm better than most people that this here. I want to know the cost of the refinancing. What were the fees to pay to refinance? I don't see that there. If it's there, I somehow miss it. I'll send you all an email on that asking that question. But it's surely a question that should be answered.
Richard, I'm sorry, your time's
Okay,
up.
that's fine. That was good enough, anyways.
We have one more speaker, and just as a reminder to all of our speakers as she comes on down, I read at the beginning that the board doesn't respond to your items tonight, but answers are posted on For the Record. Board members may also respond during their board reports tonight or right after.
Good evening. I'm Tamia Bacco. I have a 6th grader who opted out this week on her writing test, and I have a 3rd grader. I'm here to speak to the board about my 3rd grader.
Could you please
Basically,
speak into the
Oh,
microphone?
sorry, because she has not taken the test yet, and I just would like to share with you what this is doing to her. I'm a parent of a 3rd grader who has dyslexia. I want to tell everyone here what this FSA test has done to her. Due to the pressure put on our teachers and students with the FSA, she now tells me almost daily how she dislikes school. Since winter break, we have watched her C average in reading become an F. They have been taking cold reads to prepare for the FSA. Research shows children with dyslexia don't score well on these type of assignments. Her once B average in math has become a D because of all the writing that is required to explain her answers. This hits her self-esteem and has affected her in other ways at school as well. She has quit band and doesn't want to study any other subjects for her test because, as she says, why should I? I'm going to fail anyways. So, as responsible adults and parents, how can we let this continue? Sorry. This is our future. I know that there are other parents who are in the same situation. I ask if anyone has thought about the future of these children who are going through these struggles and how this is destroying their self-esteem at such a young age, and what will become of them as they become seniors in high school, hopefully, if they make it that long. These tests are destroying my loving, caring, and creative child, and I'm asking for you to help me help her. Thank you.
Okay, the board wishes to thank this evening's speakers. Your willingness to speak tonight, all of you, is very much appreciated. Before we move on to the consent agenda, I always like to ask board members, is there anyone that wants to respond? Mr. Ziegler? Okay. Okay, Mrs. Henderson.
Assessment and accountability is one of my favorite subjects for the last several years because I agree with all of you. We are at a critical point at the legislative session right now that your voices need to be heard up there as well. I appreciate you coming here. I agree with you. But if you take the opportunity to talk to the legislators, some of your stories are just so passionate. I mean, how could they not be affected by that? I think that, I'm asking you to take it to them as well. Thank you.
Okay, before I go to Dr. Bingley, any other board members? Mr. Craig.
I would just add to that as well. As many of you know, I have an ESE student with a pretty serious disorder, and so a lot of those same passions and same issues are evident in our family as well. I go to Tallahassee tomorrow, and we'll continue to wave the flag that you all are pushing, because it's the right thing to do for our kids, no matter whether they have a disorder, whether they have a IEP, or whether they are a 4.0 student and never had a problem. We need to treat everyone as an individual, not as a group. So I appreciate your passion on that, and I look forward to sharing some of your stories with our legislators tomorrow, because it's important to bring the personal side to that discussion. So thank you very much. And I'll just, we're moving on to the consent agenda, but a lot have been meant about hiding something in the consent agenda. Just so everybody knows, the consent agenda is a mechanism that is used for board meetings. We will pull things as we need to, but that is just merely a mechanism. It is merely a formality. It doesn't mean that we're not going to discuss it. It doesn't mean that we're trying to push anything through without discussion. That is merely the way that the organization of the meeting is set up. So hopefully that clarifies that point, and when we get to the consent agenda, we will make sure that we discuss what we need to.
And I would just like to make a comment on the testing concerns. In the past couple weeks, there have been a lot of emails going on, and one of our senior staff members has been very vilified, unfairly, very unfairly. The directives that came out in terms of mandatory third grade retention, the directives that came out in regards to how we handle things, what we can and can't do, those weren't this individual's person's sitting in her office saying, I'm going to do this because I can. This is a person who was being told, along with all 67 testing coordinators around the state, you must do this. And when you're told by the Department of Education, you must do this, your license is on the line. If you don't do what they tell you to do, that's where they come back and get you. That is a professional expense. That is a professional offense that could have a whole domino of ramifications. The problem Brevard County fell into is we did stand up and say, what do you mean this? We don't understand. And even as early as Saturday, Dr. Bingley and I were on the phone with each other Saturday evening because he has the commissioner's private cell phone number. Nobody was calling us back. They put these directives out orally on the phone through conference calls, but they don't follow them up in writing. And we all know, Mr. Beislein, the legal standard. If it's not written down, it didn't happen. So what has happened is that Tallahassee has tried to make us the bad guys. They sit up there in their ivory towers and say, we don't agree with this civil disobedience that's going on out there. And my response is, well, too bad. That's how this country was founded. But they told us we had to do this. And we are trying to do everything we can to keep these things from happening. But please do not attack the individual who had to be shoot the messenger. A lot of you shot the messenger, and I was initially one of those people thinking that this person sent out this letter and misinformed everybody. She's not the enemy. There's not a nicer person in this room than Dr. Schaefer, and I want her to know that she was really trying to do what was best. And I know some of you are shaking your heads, you don't agree, but she didn't want to send that out. She was told by the DOE to send it out. She's caught in the middle, folks. So the board's trying to take that off of her backs by saying we're not going to tolerate it. So Dr. Bingley.
Well, I'll just pick up from there. Folks talked about wanting, vetting things, no, there was crystal clarity on a testing coordinator conference call, crystal. And from that moment, we began saying, but I don't think that's right. And that culminated with our conversations, as Ms. Nisi said,
to finally, today, getting the highest level of the Department of Ed to acknowledge that we're going to allow you to make a district-related choice. And as soon as that happened, we immediately then shared with our principals that as it relates to the third grade question, we would allow good cause exemption, as we have in the past. The reality is that young people who did not take the test, for instance, who might have had mono and couldn't be there, we were able to give good cause exemptions. I echo Ms. Nisi's comment that, you know, we kept the pressure there and got to a place where we can do what it is we believe is right. And we did that. And I will say that Dr. Schaefer has been instrumental in trying to give that feedback to the people that need to have it. Beyond the third grade testing, you know, we get happy, shiny talk up there that the testing went all well. Well, it really didn't. And she has been a soldier in giving the Department of Ed the information that they need to have in this regard. So, you know, in the end, I think that we were able to share with our schools, with our principals, and ultimately with our parents what is the right practice, at least as it relates to third grade and the question of promotion. You've heard this body say for many, we'd prefer that be in the hands completely of teachers. It's in our legislative platform. No disagreement. But understand, there was commentary from the DOE, and it's the only unambiguous comment they made in the whole lot of the thing until today at 1:20. And when they went from clarity and at the wrong place to ambiguity and double talk to clarity, where now we can move forward and do what we think is right. That's all I'll share on that, but I think that was an important
Well,
point.
and to add, they're not going to freely share that with other districts, so we're ensuring that the other 67 districts across the state are aware of the steps we're taking, and Dr. Bingley has sent the letter out to the appropriate people that can get out to all those districts, because they're still playing shell games out in Tallahassee. So just so all of you know, we are stepping up and taking a leadership role. Anybody else? Am I hearing the board needs a break? Okay, we're going to take a very quick break. Meeting a short break, 10 minutes or less. Okay, welcome back.